You didn't come to my birthday party? That proves you don't belong to my culture. From now on, you're done here.
Culture isn't built on cupcakes and ego. Get me out of here, and you'll see what real chaos is like.
They call it logistics. I call it coordinating the pulse of a nation's steel, diesel, frozen freight, and human stubbornness grinding across 37 states, whether the weather cooperates or not. My name is Franklin Cole, and for 21 years, I was the quiet engine behind Iron Stride Transport, a $3.5 billion logistics empire that liked to pretend it ran on software and strategy. No, it ran on me. If you bought firewood in Denver during a blizzard, fresh fruit in Montana in January, or spare parts for a hospital generator after a hurricane, chances are I was the reason those deliveries arrived. My title, Senior Network Continuity Officer, was corporate nonsense. What I really did was simple. I kept the system alive, and I knew exactly which bolts held the entire machine together. I never sat in a glass office. I never asked for a promotion. I had a cubicle wedged between the dispatch board and a rattling industrial printer that sounded like an asthmatic lawnmower. Perfect, quiet, predictable, exactly the environment a man needs to hear the subtle rhythms of a continent-wide freight network. But everything changed the day our founder retired and handed the keys to his son Damian Arden, a 34-year-old peacock in a tailored suit. With a resume padded by private tutors, family money, and a leadership course in Bali where he claimed he found his executive vibration, he hated me the moment he saw me. I was legacy. I was analog. I was the man who remembered when our tracking systems crashed for 6 days in 2013, and I rerouted freight manually with a laminated map and a Sharpie. He wanted a modern empire. I wanted trucks to arrive on time. Naturally, we were doomed. The breaking point wasn't a failed shipment, or a crisis, or a system outage. It was his birthday, a mandatory company event at his lakeside mansion on the busiest freight day of the month. I skipped it. I was monitoring a temperature-sensitive medical shipment that would spoil if I looked away for 10 minutes. The next morning, I logged in. Access denied. Then I heard his voice behind me. Franklin, you're fired. He had no idea what he'd just unplugged. Take a second and stretch your hands out. Just to ease a bit of the tension, stories like this can tighten your whole body without you noticing. Tell me, how did that moment hit you when Franklin lost everything over a birthday he never owed anyone? And where in the world are you listening from right now? If you're feeling the weight of this story the way I am telling it, tap that subscribe button. I'd be grateful to have you along for the full journey. Because what comes next is the moment the entire empire begins to shake. When Damian fired me, he believed he'd cut away dead weight. In truth, he had just removed the only pressure valve keeping Iron Stride Transport from shaking itself apart. But as I walked out of his office, badge surrendered and dignity intact, I felt something almost unfamiliar room to breathe. No shouting, no arguing, just a quiet acceptance as I took my jacket and headed for the elevator. The 2 security guards gave me looks that said, "We know this is a mistake." But they followed orders. Damian never noticed the difference between loyalty and compliance. The elevator doors slid shut, sealing me away from his arrogance. Then my phone buzzed. Not the company phone, that was already locked. My personal phone, the one only real operators had. First message, Marquez, West Texas Dispatch. Frank, your access disappeared. What's going on? I replied. Gone. Second Lydia in Long Beach Customs. Your credentials aren't validating. Are you still with us, Third Harlan? Veteran driver. Fuel cards aren't syncing. Is this one of your resets, or did the kid break something? None of them knew yet, but instinct told them the truth. Something at the core had shifted. I stepped into the lobby. No one there had any clue. Damian hadn't notified HR or operations. He fired me the same way he managed everything emotion first. Logic never outside. The cold air carried the low rumble of trucks heading toward the interstate. Iron Stride's network was a living organism, and I felt it tightening, jittering, sensing the absence of the one person who understood its heartbeat. I sat in my car and let the stillness settle. Here was the truth. Iron Stride never relied on my title. It relied on me, my relationships, my history, my crisis instincts. Vendors trusted Franklin Cole, not a CEO who handed out job titles like party favors. Port authorities took my calls because I solved problems at 2 a.m. without excuses. Drivers listened to me because I'd spent years earning their respect, not demanding it. Damian didn't fire an employee. He fired the stabilizer. And now the system was beginning to slip. I opened my personal contacts, my real network, the one built over decades of storms, outages, strikes, and long-haul emergencies. I scrolled until I reached the man whose call would always mark the beginning of a shift in the tides, Captain Elias Ward, Port of Savannah. Direct line, private, no bureaucracy. This situation qualified. I hit call. He answered on the second ring. Franklin, I just received an automated alert from Ironstride. Something about authorization changes. Tell me you're still in the chair. My eyes narrowed as I watched the Ironstride headquarters in my rearview mirror still standing, but already trembling. Elias, I said, calm and controlled. I'm out, and what you're seeing is the first crack. A long pause. Then what do you need? Exactly the question I was waiting for. Captain Elias Ward didn't waste time with pleasantries. Franklin, he said, voice steady but weighted. Authorization changes don't happen without reason. What's going on over there? I stared out through the windshield at the Ironstride building, sleek glass, polished steel, and a hollow core no one else could see yet. Elias, I said. Damien fired me this morning. Over a birthday party I didn't attend. Silence stretched for a full beat. Then you're joking. I wish I were. A low exhale rolled through the phone. Ironstride just revoked your port authorization, he said. That triggers a mandatory review of all active manifests. We're already seeing delays. I closed my eyes not in guilt, but in recognition. The system wasn't crumbling because of me. It was crumbling because Damien didn't understand the difference between removing a piece and removing the keystone. Elias, I said, follow protocol. Lock everything until Ironstride assigns a new certified liaison. Don't clear anything without a signature from someone competent. That means no automated approvals. Fine, he said. But be aware this move is going to choke their East Coast inbound lanes by sundown. That's not my problem anymore. But we both knew it was absolutely my problem. I hung up and took a breath. The chain reaction had started. Next came Tracy Hale, our Chicago yard manager, gravel-voiced, battle-hardened, allergic to incompetence. She called without warning. Frank, what the hell's happening? The gate codes didn't update. Drivers are lined up down the boulevard. I rubbed the bridge of my nose. Tracy, I'm gone. Gone as in vacation, gone as in fired. A harsh whistle cut through the speaker. That idiot child actually did it, didn't he? Before I could answer. She continued, listen, I'm pausing all yard access until I get a verified operations update. Nobody moves. I'm not risking liability because that boy wanted candles and confetti. That's the right call, I said quietly. You taught me that, she replied, voice softening for half a second. Then she hung up. 3 calls, 3 dominoes, each one tipping the next. I leaned back in the seat, letting the shape of the problem settle. Ironstride's network sprawling, intricate, sensitive was already entering what I called the silent wobble. No alarms, no explosions, just tiny misalignments stacking quietly until the whole system lurched. My phone buzzed again, this time a notification from Fleet Corps, the company that handled our fuel card system. A routine alert, primary authorization holder inactive, transaction exceptions expected. Damien didn't even know fuel cards required manual exceptions every Tuesday. I did. Always had. And now thousands of trucks were about to hit pumps with cards that blinked red. I could have ignored it. I could have walked away. But instead, I opened a blank note and wrote 3 words. Let it happen. Because Ironstride wasn't suffering sabotage. It was suffering reality. And reality was finally catching up. My phone vibrated once more, an unknown number. I answered, Mr. Cole. A calm, clipped voice. This is Deputy Marshal Alden with the Federal Transportation Safety Office. We need to discuss a discrepancy involving Ironstride's compliance logs. The collapse had begun. And here's the part most viewers don't know. Deputy Marshal Alden's voice had the kind of calm that meant trouble. Mr. Cole, he repeated, are you available to answer a few questions regarding Ironstride's compliance gaps? My pulse didn't spike. It simply narrowed. Yes. I said, what exactly are you seeing? There was a shuffle of papers on his end before he spoke. We received an automated trigger from Ironstride's internal safety system. It flagged a lapse in signature continuity for hazardous freight, specifically under your certification ID. Of course it did. Damien removed the signature, but didn't assign a replacement. A network like Ironstride doesn't just lose a name, it loses legal authority. What does this mean for Ironstride? I asked, already knowing the answer, until a new certified officer is validated. Alden said, all hazardous material shipments are frozen under federal hold. That includes chemicals, industrial solvents, and medical-grade compressed gases. Your company didn't respond to our verification request. I almost smiled, but didn't. This is not an oversight I caused. I said, oh. I know, Alden replied. His tone dipped into something almost sympathetic. Mr. Cole, we've seen this before. A leadership change mishandled, rushed, reckless. He paused. And from what we're hearing from port officials, Ironstride is bracing for a very long night. We ended the call, and for the first time since the firing. I wasn't thinking about Damien. I was thinking about the drivers, the people who would be stranded with cargo they couldn't legally move, sitting in truck stops with cold coffee and expired fuel cards. My phone buzzed again. This time, Denver Depot group chat. A flood of messages. Anyone got a working card? Pump declined again. We're stuck outside the gate. New codes aren't in the system. Did something happen to Cole? I swallowed hard. Their worry wasn't for the company, it was for me. And that told me everything I needed to know about who truly ran Ironstride. I exhaled slowly and typed one message into the group. Hold position. Do not move hazardous freight. Wait for authorization from your state safety officer immediately. Replies poured in, copy that. Frank, we trust you. We're not rolling without your okay. Trust, the one currency Damien could never buy. A ping interrupted my thoughts, an incoming call from Mara Lindholm, Ironstride's former chief operations officer. She had retired last year, but nothing happened in this industry without her hearing about it. Franklin Cole, she said sharply, tell me why I'm getting calls from regulators, drivers, and 3 different yard managers asking if the company still exists. Damien fired me. I answered. A beat of dead silence. Then Mara barked out the kind of laugh you only hear from someone who's survived too much idiocy. That boy finally lit his own house on fire, she said. And from what I'm seeing, the flames are spreading. She sighed. You're not behind this collapse. Frank, you just stopped holding the walls up. I opened my mouth to respond, but another alert popped up, this one from the National Freight Exchange Board. Ironstride has missed 2 consecutive compliance updates. Immediate review initiated. Damien had no idea what was coming. But I did. And the next domino was about to fall hard. This paragraph explains everything you are about to hear. By late afternoon, Ironstride wasn't wobbling anymore. It was tilting, groaning under its own weight, like a freight container stacked 1 row too high, and the man responsible sitting comfortably in his corner office, blissfully unaware that his empire was dissolving in silence. I parked my car at a small overlook facing the interstate. From here, I could see the endless stream of trucks carving through the highway. Usually, Ironstride rigs dominated that stretch, clean white trailers, the chrome-blue logo catching sunlight. Not today. Today. Too many of them were pulled off to the shoulder, stalled, idle, confused, and every single one of them was another sign that Damien Arden had no idea how fragile his inheritance really was. My phone buzzed again, this time a video call request from Nolan Beck, Ironstride's veteran safety inspector. I answered. His face appeared, framed by fluorescent lights and a warehouse wall. Franklin, please tell me you were demoted, suspended, anything but gone, fired. I said, birthday attendance violation. Nolan pinched the bridge of his nose. Unbelievable. Listen, half the Midwest fleet is grounded. Hazardous freight is locked. The East Coast lanes are frozen. And get this, Damien sent an internal memo telling everyone not to panic and that the system is going through an innovation reset. I barked a short, humorless laugh. He thinks this is a software glitch. It's structural collapse. That's why I'm calling. Nolan leaned closer. The federal audit team is assembling. They're asking who the continuity officer is. There is no continuity officer. Exactly. I said, the federal hold will expand. And Damien, Nolan asked, he still thinks he can fix this with a motivational speech. Nolan shook his head. They're going to blame you, I know. Another ping, this one from Elias Ward at the port of Savannah. Franklin, BBC Logistics just requested emergency redirect of a full vessel. Ironstride couldn't confirm their berth schedule. They're saying your company is non-responsive. Ironstride not responding to a major carrier. That wasn't a crack. That was a rupture. My phone vibrated again, this time with a text from a number I didn't recognize. Mr. Cole. This is Avery Thorne from Apex Global Freight. We heard about the leadership shakeup. Call me if you're open to alternative opportunities. Recruiters. They smelled weakness the way sharks sensed blood. But I wasn't ready to move. Not yet. Because Ironstride hadn't hit bottom. It hadn't even realized it was falling. The sun had fully set when my phone lit up again, this time with a number I recognized instantly. Ironstride HQ. Executive line. Only a handful of people had access to that outbound channel, and only one of them would be desperate enough to use it now. I answered without speaking. A shaky inhale came through first. Then Franklin. It's Damien. I said nothing. He rushed on. Listen, I think there's been a misunderstanding. The system is malfunctioning. Dispatch can't access the network. Compliance is backed up. Fuel accounts are rejecting transactions. Drivers are calling my personal phone. He stopped, breath-catching. I need your login credentials, just temporarily. There it was. The moment arrogance finally collided with reality. Damien, I said quietly. Your system isn't malfunctioning. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do when the continuity officer is removed. A beat of silence stretched. You mean all this is because you're gone? No, I corrected him. All this is happening because you didn't replace me. He let out a hollow, terrified sound. Franklin, the board is threatening to suspend me. Clients are pulling contracts. Port authorities won't answer. A muffled voice interrupted him, someone shouting in the background. Another voice, sharper, angrier, papers shuffling, the brittle edges of panic. Then Damien whispered, They think I sabotaged the company. I leaned my head back against the car seat, staring at the dark horizon. You didn't sabotage it. You neglected it. That's worse. A long pause. Franklin, he said, voice cracking, I need you to come back, please. Just long enough to stabilize things. There it was, fear stripping away ego. But I had already seen too much damage, too much silence. Too many drivers stranded on fuel islands, too many yard managers waiting for instructions that would never come, too many port officers watching their berths clog like arteries. I'm not coming back, I said simply. Damien inhaled sharply, as if slapped. Then tell me what to do, he whispered. You can't fix a network you've never bothered to understand, I replied. Ironstride needs someone who knows its pulse, not someone who only cares about birthday optics. A sudden knock on his office door, loud, urgent. A voice barked, Mr. Arden, the federal auditors are here. Now. Damien's breathing sped up. Franklin, please, if they're there, I said, then the review has escalated. That means something bigger triggered it. Damien, what did you ignore? He hesitated. I approved a vendor shift for a hazardous shipment this afternoon. We were short-staffed. I signed off myself. My spine went rigid. You're not certified, I said. I know, he whispered. And in that moment, I realized the collapse wasn't just imminent. It was already detonating. The line went quiet, so quiet I could hear Damien swallow on the other end. Franklin, he said, barely audible. They're asking for the chain of custody logs. They want proof the shipment was cleared under a licensed officer. I thought it would be a simple signature. I didn't think they'd cross-check certifications. My jaw tightened. They always cross-check certifications. A soft knock echoed through his phone again. Someone whispered urgently. They're ready for you, sir. Sir, not for long. Damien, I said. Voice level. What exactly did you authorize? There was a rustling of papers, frantic clicks, and then a trembling breath. A tanker, industrial solvent, high volatility. The original carrier refused to move it without your sign-off. I rerouted it to a third-party contractor and pushed it through. A cold weight settled in my stomach. You signed a hazardous reroute without proper clearance. I didn't know it required your signature, he snapped. Desperation bleeding through the arrogance. I thought continuity was optional. I thought the system would just adjust. I closed my eyes. Systems don't adjust to ignorance. They respond to it. Before he could reply, my phone vibrated with another call, then another. Then 3 rapid texts. Alerts blinked across my screen like wildfire. From Nolan. Safety Inspector Frank, it happened. Tanker overturned on I-63. State troopers reporting chemical exposure. From Tracy and Chicago highway shutdown. DOT requesting Iron Stride rep on site. No one here is certified. From Captain Ward Franklin, federal hazard alert issued. This will get ugly fast. Time seemed to slow. I put Damien on speaker and opened one of the photos. Nolan sent a blurred image of flashing lights, responders in hazmat suits, and a jackknife tanker leaking something thick and iridescent across the asphalt. Damien, I said quietly, someone could die because of this. His exhale cracked. What do I do? You tell the auditors the truth, I said. You signed something you didn't understand. I can't, he whispered. They'll crucify me. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. They're already crucifying Iron Stride. Your honesty won't save you, but your lies will bury the entire company. In the background, I heard muffled shouting legal counsel, board members, compliance officers all scrambling in a storm he created with one careless pen stroke. Then another voice took the phone, a colder, older voice. Mr. Cole, the man said, this is Board Director Winslow. Are you aware of a hazardous spill involving a shipment you previously oversaw? Yes, I answered. And are you aware that Mr. Arden routed it illegally after terminating your position? Yes. A long, heavy silence. Franklin, Winslow said, tone clipped and decisive. We need you at headquarters, tonight. This is no longer about one shipment. It's about the survival of the company. I stared at the highway-stalled trucks, flashing sirens, the ghost of an empire collapsing under its own negligence. Then you'd better be ready, I said, because you're not calling back an employee. You're calling back the last person who knows how to stop the bleeding. You will want to stay until the end to hear this part. Director Winslow didn't wait for me to agree. Transportation is routing a car to your location now, he said. You'll brief the board the moment you arrive. I'm not a member of your staff anymore, I replied. And yet, Winslow said, you're the only one we trust to tell the truth. The call ended before I could answer. I sat there for a moment, the hum of the highway buzzing beneath the night air. Truth. A strange word to hear from Iron Stride's board, a group of people who once treated me like a dependable tool rather than a thinking human being. Now they needed me. Not for loyalty, not for convenience. They needed me because the alternative was ruin. Headlights flashed behind me. A black sedan pulled up, windows tinted, urgency humming off the engine. The rear door opened automatically. Mr. Cole, the driver said. HQ is waiting. The ride was short but heavy. My phone kept vibrating updates, inquiries, warnings, rumors. Everyone wanted a piece of information, a hint of stability, a confirmation that the system wasn't about to implode, but it was imploding quietly, methodically, and predictably. As the car approached Iron Stride's headquarters, the building looked different, not structurally, visually. Emergency lights washed across the glass facade. Reporters gathered near the front entrance, cameras turning at every movement. Security guards guided them back with rehearsed calm that fooled no one. The driver pulled into the underground garage. When the elevator doors opened on the executive floor, the tension hit like a wall. The boardroom was filled. 7 directors, 3 legal advisors, 2 compliance officers, and Damien standing near the corner of the room, shoulders tight, face pale, tie crooked. The arrogance drained out of him like air from a punctured tire. Director Winslow rose first. Franklin Cole, he said. Thank you for coming, I nodded. I'm not here to mend egos, I said. I'm here to explain what happened and what happens next. I walked to the center of the room. Eyes followed me, some hopeful, some wary, some silently pleading. I placed my phone on the table and tapped it once. A map appeared on the large monitor behind me, Iron Stride's real-time network. It was a massacre of red icons. Trucks denied gate entry, fuel transactions declined, hazardous loads immobilized, yards frozen, ports locked, compliance alerts stacked like falling dominoes. Quiet gasps rippled through the room. This, I said, is what happens when you remove continuity without a plan. Your entire system relies on a chain of validation. That chain broke the moment Damien fired the only certified officer managing it. A legal advisor cleared his throat. Are you saying this collapse is the result of a single personnel decision? No, I answered. It's the result of leadership that didn't understand the weight of that decision. Damien stepped forward, voice trembling. I made a mistake. But Franklin, you could have told me. You could have... No, I said. I did tell you, for years. You never listened. Silence. Director Winslow folded his hands. Mr. Cole, can it still be stopped? It can, I said softly, but not without a cost. And every person in that room knew exactly what that meant. A heavy quiet settled over the boardroom, thick, expectant, almost reverent. They all understood the subtext behind my words. Stopping the collapse would require sacrificing something, or someone. Director Winslow leaned forward. What cost? Mr. Cole? I stepped closer to the screen, tapping a cluster of flashing red icons along the Midwest corridor. First, the hazardous spill must be reported accurately. No vague wording, no legal massaging, full admission that an uncertified executive approved the reroute. A ripple of discomfort moved across the table. The compliance officer, a rigid man named Leland, pressed his lips together. That would expose Ironstride to enormous penalties. He said, "Yes," I replied, "but lying will end the company before sunrise." Then I tapped another section of the map. Second, you'll need to shut down the entire network for a controlled reset. Trucks immobilized, yards locked, ports notified. A full operational freeze. Damien snapped his head up. That's insane. Do you know how many millions that would cost in one night? I met his glare calmly. It'll cost more if you let the system collapse chaotically. This way. You control the damage instead of drowning in it. No one defended him this time. I moved to the final point. And third, Ironstride needs a certified continuity officer on record to interface with federal agencies tonight. Without one, the DIOT will expand the shutdown and seize control of your carrier licenses. Every eye in the room landed on me, Damien whispered. So that's the cost. You want your job back? I shook my head. No, I want authority, without interference. A stunned silence followed. Then Director Winslow exhaled slowly. Mr. Cole, if we grant you temporary operational command, can you contain this before federal seizure? Yes, I said, but only if you step back and let me work. No corporate filters, no ego decisions, no executive signatures except mine. Damien lurched forward. You can't put him in charge. He's the one letting this happen. I turned to him. I didn't let anything happen. You removed the only person who knew how the system breathed. The room knew I was right. Finally, Winslow rubbed his temple. Effective immediately. Franklin Cole will serve as interim director of system continuity. Full emergency authority. The legal advisor scribbled the resolution into existence. Damien's voice cracked. You're replacing me. No, I said quietly. You replaced yourself when you ignored the fundamentals. Winslow looked at me. Mr. Cole, what is your first move? I opened the real-time network map, the sea of red icons blinking like warning beacons across a dying empire. Simple, I said. We're going to stop the bleeding. The room held its breath as I stepped toward the massive screen, the digital map pulsing like the vital signs of a patient on the brink. Every flashing red icon was a wound, every stalled truck, every frozen yard, every unanswered port request another artery failing. First move, I said, fingers dancing across the tablet, is containment, with one command. I initiated Ironstride's highest level freeze protocol, something I'd built years ago and no executive had ever bothered to learn. The system hummed, lights shifted, and slowly the chaos stopped spreading. Red icons stabilized, alerts paused mid-cascade. What did you just do? Leland asked. I put the network in a medically induced coma, I replied. It won't heal yet, but it won't get worse. The board watched, stunned. As the digital storm calmed, my second move was for the drivers. I opened the emergency fleet broadcast channel, one only I had ever used. All Ironstride drivers, I said, voice firm but steady. This is Franklin Cole. Hold positions. Do not move hazardous loads. Fuel reimbursements will be authorized through state contingency partners. You will not be stranded tonight. Responses poured in short acknowledgments, relieved messages, weary gratitude. The drivers were safe, for now. Then came the hardest part. I drafted a report to the Department of Transportation, direct, honest, unforgiving. Every misstep, every unauthorized signature, every procedural breach tied directly to Damien Arden. I placed the tablet on the table. Send it, I told Winslow. He hesitated only a second, then pressed his thumb to the authorization pad. The report launched. Damien sank into his chair, defeated. You just ended my career. No, I said softly. You ended it the moment you thought leadership meant celebrating yourself instead of protecting the people who keep this machine alive. The map shifted again, yellow replacing red. Ports acknowledging, yards stabilizing. The system wasn't saved, but it was no longer dying. Winslow turned to me. Franklin. What happens now? I looked at the blinking network, the blinking proof of how close collapse had come. Now, I said, now we rebuild. But not the way it was. Outside the boardroom windows. The night was still. But Ironstride, broken, humbled, and finally listening, had taken its first breath toward survival. Sometimes it takes losing everything to realize what truly held your life together. This story reminded me that stability isn't luck, it's courage, boundaries, and finally choosing yourself. How did it make you feel? And after hearing Franklin's journey, what's one thing you want to change in your own life? I'd love to know where you're listening from tonight. If this story stayed with you, feel free to drop a comment, hit like, share it forward, and subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive.